All right. Thank you, David, for joining us, and welcome everyone for attending this user group meeting. We were hoping to have it a little bit early this month, but we finally got David on board and everything is set. So I'm so happy to get this one going. We do monitor Q&A feeds in the chat window as usual, and what can I say about David? I've known him for quite some time now, and OSD has been, I'll say, a good chunk of his life, and PowerShell in particular recently. So welcome, David.
Hi, thanks for having me, Johan. How's everyone doing? Well, everyone's on mute, so I guess they won't reply.
Well, it's pretty good
Well,
here
I
in
am
Chicago.
I'm in Houston. I'm thankful for this, Johan. Thank you, and Amy. Thank you for putting this together. Johan's right. I've known him for a long time. Shall we get started, Johan?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. Well, today is today's topic, OSD Builder, and I hope everyone on the call is pretty familiar with it. We're going to try and get things as deep as we can possibly get, so I hope everyone can keep up. Who's David? Johan introduced me briefly, yes. A few facts about me, and I met Johan at Geek Week. So yes, I've known him for a long time. Right now, currently I work for Baker Hughes. I've been with the company for about 15 years, and I'm currently a manager of client operations, OS deployment. I have presented quite a few different places. Most of them have been in Texas. It's really cool to be able to start doing this online. So maybe I'll start branching out. And multi-MVP nominee, still waiting, but I need more Intune. And like I said, I'm a former student of Geek Week. This is where I met Johan. In fact, if you go to his Facebook page, you will find me in one of his pictures, his banner picture. That's me with the arrow. Johan's obviously the guy at the bottom. That was back in 2011. So where am I? You can find me on Twitter. I post frequently. I do have a homepage, osdeploy.com. If you go to OSDBuilder.com, it's going to redirect you to just the OSD Builder part of my website. I'm on LinkedIn, and I rarely check Facebook at all. Whoops, I guess I should show my screen. All right, can everyone see this? Johan?
Looks good, sir. Looks good.
Let's go back if we missed the slides, but now that everyone can see the picture, that is me with the blue arrow. So back in 2011.
Awesome.
So I'll leave these links up for just a second, or just follow Johan and Amy, and you'll definitely find some of my links. So let's get started. What is OSD Builder? It's a PowerShell module that I wrote to basically perform offline servicing of a Windows image. I say Windows 10 and Windows Server 2016 plus, but there is some minimal support for Windows 7 and Windows Server 2012 R2, which I really am looking to get away from. Hopefully you are too. And one thing about OSD Builder in the last 6 or 8 months, there are 2 required modules that are part of OSD Builder. One is called OSD. It contains some common functions, and the other is OSD sus, and that contains all the exported WSUS updates. And we can see this in my module manifest. OSD module, I'm always looking for the latest version, and I specify that OSDSUS, as you can see, you can go all the way back to October 13th, which is Patch Tuesday in October. So if you need to build an image for an updated image with December's updates because you've got some January updates that are failing, you can absolutely do that. And that is the whole point of separating it out. Additionally, it gives everyone an avenue to make use of the updates that I'm already exporting. Donna Ryan is one all-star that's made use of OSDSUS in WinWich, which does a lot of similar functionality to OSD Builder in a nice GUI interface. So we're going to talk about OSDSUS. It is a required module. You don't have to be on the latest version, but it helps. It contains basically every day or two, I'll check WSUS and I will generate an XML export of all the updates that we use for Windows 10 and Windows Server. And these are a list of all the updates that I typically put in there. And basically, it's just a catalog. There's no logic in there. In fact, we can pop into PowerShell real quick, and don't let anyone make fun of you for using ICE. It's very friendly. Here we go. And basically, there are two functions: a get OSDSUS and an update OSDSUS. And this happens all behind the scenes. We can specify a particular update, and we'll just run that. And as you see, tons of updates. And we can obviously we're going to limit this to Windows 10, and it gives me a nice, it allows me to do multiple types of queries. And this is exactly how we can use this in OSD Builder or WinWich. And if, for example, I do have the ability to drill down, pop in a grid view, and we can see I've got one servicing stack, and this is exactly what it's going to return. And if I pop it out in command line only with no grid view, it's going to return the update object. And the way this works is the update object contains an origin URI, which is how we download the updates. And we also have some information on is latest, is superseded, different things like this, the KB number. And this is very useful because, sometimes querying a WSUS can take a while. This makes it very portable. And one thing I recommend with OSD Builder is I do all of my building on a non-domain machine because I don't want things like antivirus getting in the way. I like to think of creating a Windows image as a music artist recording in a studio. It's very silent, isolated. And if you're making a master recording, you want to weed out as much noise as possible. So we're going to quickly install OSD Builder for those of you who aren't familiar with how to do that. Can everyone see the VM, Johan? Did we switch properly?
Not yet. I see the mix of the background with, or maybe it is the background of the VM.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wallpaper is my slide.
Awesome.
So OSD Builder, I'm just going to pop into ICE again, run this as administrator. And we can see the command is very simple. We don't need that. We just give it a name, and this is going to reach out to the PowerShell gallery. It's going to tell me I need NuGet. and we should be able to see it download NuGet, and then we're going to download the required packages, which is OSD and OSD Sus, and then we should have a complete OSD Builder. Now, anytime we work with the module, there's so many pieces. I prefer, if you're going to update or fresh install rather than use the import module, we just simply close out PowerShell and come back in it. We do need administrator rights in PowerShell because we are mounting a Windows image and removing packages. And once we have it installed, we are ready to run OSD Builder, but this will fail because we obviously didn't set our execution policy. Now we can type in OSD Builder or get OSD Builder. It's all the same. Get is assumed. And here we can see it's installed. And this is normally what we get. When we run get OSD Builder, we will typically, we have a readout of where our common paths and directories are. And one thing that sticks out is I can see here this warning, OSD Sus can be updated. So even though I fresh installed the module, it obviously did not give me the latest OSD Sus. And typically it does, but sometimes it doesn't. And when one of these required modules, like OSD here, is not up to date, well, here it is, and we see it's in green. OSD Sus is not, we see it's in yellow, and OSD Builder appears to be up to date. So there is some version checking going on here, and we can simply see by the warning, it's telling me I need to run this command here, and so that's exactly what I'll do. And I'm simply showing a warning of the commands that I'm using. If you want to run these commands separately, you absolutely can. These are internal PowerShell commands. And let's check OSD Sus. Let's check OSD Builder again. Now, we see that it's still showing me I'm not up to date. And typically what I would need to do here is import module again. But like I've already said, I do prefer to drop straight into a new PowerShell session. And we'll just put a get in front to show you that there's no difference. And if we look, we can see OSD Sus is now up to date. Cool, I thought so. Let's pop back into presentation here. So we've gone over the install, and we've minimally done some get OSD Builder. And so let's pop back in and really get OSD Builder going. So ICE shortcut. And like I've demonstrated before, OSD Builder is going to give me a lot of information. Remember, this is get OSD Builder, and it tells me that it defaults to this directory COSD Builder. And I'll pop in Windows Explorer, and I will see this directory doesn't exist. It's only created after I actually need it created. So when I import an operating system. But one thing we can see here is there is at the very top initializing OSD Builder. And this is a new function where it's going to read and look for some settings. And so we take a look, anytime we want to refresh OSD Builder, this is exactly what we do. And there's really nothing for it to process because we haven't added anything to OSD Builder yet. So let's look in our commands. And again, ICE is very, very helpful because I don't expect anybody to memorize all the parameters. And we'll see here, one thing we can do is we can create paths. And if we come back here, we now see we have an OSD Builder directory with all of our required directories. Update module is part of this. We also have a set home. And one thing we can do is we can change the path, set home. Let's give it something like that. And we will see here, my home directory is now OSDB. Now, one thing I like to do, and I work with a lot of different OSD Builder repositories, is one tip I can give you: separate your production and dev environment. And I'll show you exactly how I do that here. I simply create a PowerShell script, and we're going to run this script. And what this does, it allows me to easily change my OSD Builder directory by simply creating a PowerShell script in the root that says set home PS script root. And this makes it very easy to go ahead and change when you're working with multiple OSD Builder directories. So once we have that sorted out, we can go ahead and import an operating system. Now, one thing we can't do is we can't easily just copy in an operating system. That's not how OSD Builder works. Because what OSD Builder will do is it will perform a full inventory. And I'm going to go ahead and just click on import. And it will pull a full inventory of all the APPX packages and everything about that Windows image so we can work with it later in a task. And if we look here at this import, we can see that it's going to find a mounted Windows image. We can also do some other things like specify a path to look, or we can download feature updates. And it's going to find all these different indexes, and we can tell it specifically, I want this one Windows 10 Enterprise index, or I want to grab 3. We can do multiple, but I'm simply going to select Enterprise. And what I want to do is go into OSD Builder, and it's going to want to dump this image in the OS import directory. And what is interesting is it's not created yet because we don't trust the DISM information about our versioning. And so what the import is actually doing, it's mounting the Windows image so it can look in the registry and find out the exact version of that particular Windows image that it's importing. And so we're not going to see any activity here until it actually mounts it, and then it's going to perform its inventory, which should be any second. And I made sure to have this demonstration with 32-bit Windows because 64-bit will take a considerable amount of time. And now we see that it has mounted it. It's determined that this is Windows 10 Enterprise x86, 32-bit. 1909 is the release ID, and this is the OS build and the UBR.418 at the end. And this is, so this is more or less a DISM readout up until here, and the rest we are generating from the registry 1909 and the full UBR with 418, and we're going to give it a random GUID so it can help differentiate itself. We see the OS media information. This is where it's going to copy it to, and we can see the OS will be copied into an OS directory. So let's get back in here and let's look. And what this should be in the OS directory, this should be a mirror copy of your ISO. with only the single index exported out. So when we go into sources and our install WIM, we're only going to have one index. And briefly, WinPE, this is another great directory. We can see that the boot WIM has been exported out, and we have all of our WinPE, WinRE, and WinSE, which stands for Windows Setup Environment. So these are ported out so you can easily modify them rather than mounting the image to modify WinRE. It's more or less for convenience. In the root, we're going to get some general information where I can come in here and I can look, and there's a nice textual information of what is contained in this Windows image. So this is part of that full inventory. The other part is contained in this info subdirectory, and we can see it's more or less the same. Get APPX provision package. We have a sessions XML, which is pulled from the Windows image. This tells us everything about our updates. And we have a logs in directory, which this is the entire import process. These happened at the same time, but this is formatted in year, month, day, hour, minute, second. And what these are the DISM exports. I've got my get APPX provision package. Why do I need this specific one by date? Because as you use your image further down the line and customize it, you now have a historical readout of every change that's been done to this Windows image. This is very important if you work in a company that you need to audit all of your changes. Well, everything is here that you need, every DISM command, and this is something that, if you were to update your Windows image in Config Manager, you're not going to get all of this information ported out. It's simply going to go into the DISM log. And so this is very helpful if you care about this. This information is also exported out into JSON format. You'll see the ones that have a date. These are for historic. So as we modify this image further, we're always going to have historic. And then we also have current information in the JSON. And we have the same exact information in XML. So why do we care about that? Because if we gather all of this information, we can get the operating system details using another command from OSDBuilder, and it's called show OSDBuilder info. Now, I can specify the full name, or I can simply run it, and it's going to give me a grid view of all the operating systems that I have imported, updated, and I can say okay. And this was quite a bit of information to read, but let me scroll back up to the start of the command, and we can see this is the full name we gave it. It's going to give me a list of all my APPX provision packages. Here we have the simple name, so display name and then the package name. So this allows you, if you're using your own scripts in your deployment and you need to know exactly what is in an image, you can easily generate this information straight from OSDBuilder. It's also contained in all those text log files. You don't have to use the PowerShell command to do it, but we can see pretty much everything about this image, the Windows capability that are installed, the ones that are not present. Here's RSAT. This is what you have to use with the Get Windows capability online in order to enable this. We can see my language ENUS is an installed state, and we have all of these other languages that are not installed, but they're available. Optional features that are enabled, enable pending and disabled. So if we wanted to add IIS or messaging SMB1, why? Don't do that. You can see all the information here, which we'll use later on in OSDBuilder to further customize our image. Disabled with payload removed. This is NetFX. This is what we typically give it a cab and say enable NetFX. You have to give it the payload. And obviously this is probably removed due to size constraints. Superseded packages. Okay, we see a language pack, installed packs. Basically, we have all the information we need, including updates that have been applied to this Windows image. That's a lot of good information. I don't think anyone really uses this, but it's there if you need it. So, mastering OSD Builder variables. We have a get OSD Builder and a set OSD Builder master variable that are part of OSD Builder, and these are generated by default. And if we simply run in the same PowerShell window that we've already run OSD Builder and get OSD Builder, we can see here all of this information. These are our paths. This is information about the PowerShell modules, our home directory. This is where it gets information about what the current version is, this public JSON URL. And then we see what the public and the current versions are. And so when we say get, it means you can get, but these are really read-only. You can't do anything with these variables, nor should you. If you want to actually play with the variables, you have a set OSD Builder. And you'll see there are quite a few variables that have been added. And what this allows me to do is this allows me to manipulate OSD Builder settings. So one thing we can do here is we can take this set OSD Builder. Oops. I hope everyone knows convert what JSON files are. But OSD Builder looks for a specific file called OSD Builder JSON in the root of the OSD Builder directory. And what this command has allowed me to do, it's allowed me to create this JSON file with all of these settings. And if I take a look here, this gives me unprecedented information and settings that I can use in OSD Builder. And how do I know what we can do with this? Well, if we run a get help, import OS media, nope, not functionality. We can see that this information, and nobody reads help, but we can see here all of these parameters should be assigned a default value, and that default value is part of this of the JSON. And one thing that's important to me is I only work with Windows 10 Enterprise, so I can see edition ID. Here is Enterprise, and it does have a default value, import OS Media edition ID. And so what I can do is find that in this JSON, and I can tell it Enterprise. Whoops, we have to use double quotes in a JSON. My apologies. And I can tell it this is what I want to look for. So let me drop back down to desktop and mount an ISO, a secondary ISO, and let's pop back into PowerShell. And what I want to do is reinitialize OSD Builder. It only initializes when it detects a home change. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the verbose, and you can see it's picked up this file. It's found this JSON file, and it's loaded this into its variables. And hopefully, if you set this up right, then we can do another import, and we're going to have it look at our images. And so I've added and mounted a new WIM. It's a secondary 1909 ISO, so we can ensure that we have more than one. And yes, OSD Builder will look at all of your mounted ISOs for images to import. And because I've set that JSON to tell it I only care about enterprise, that is all it's going to return, and that is all it will ever return when I run OSD Builder. And so I can simply select the enterprise that I haven't imported yet and bring that one in. And this is a good view where we can see we have two different UBRs, but it's obviously the same Windows 10 enterprise. And so one thing I can suggest is spend some time going through here. Pretty much every setting you can do in OSD Builder is going to be in this JSON. That being said, we have something in here called Allow Global Options. And so what this allows me to do, if I have multiple OSD Builder shares, I can create global options. And one thing that I like to do is move my updates directory somewhere else. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and initialize OSD Builder again. And I'm going to run get OSD Builder, and I will see my updates are here. Okay. When I say allow global options, what that allows me to do is it allows me to take this JSON file and actually move it into my program data. Let's find it here, OS deploy, and I can simply paste it in here. And let me clean up a little bit of this clutter and only include the two things I really care about. These two entries, and now I can come back to my original OSD Builder and delete the one in here. We're going to reinitialize, which we can also do this way. And we can see it's taken, my updates directory is still there. We're going to spit this out again into initialize with verbose, and we can see it's found the global settings, and this is the one location that your global settings need to be. And this is how we go forward. Now, why is this important? And I've already explained that I use multiple OSD Builder directories, and we can see I've got my far west systems management user group, and I can see that the global options are applied. Now I'm looking in my FWSMUG 1, and my updates are in one location. If I pop into 2, I can change my home, and you're going to see my updates are always going to be in the same place. Now, why is this important? Because when we download updates in OSD Builder, these downloads take a considerable amount of space. And so this method allows you to share these downloads with multiple OSD Builder repositories, so you don't have to download them multiple times. So hopefully that's given you a quick run through of Set OSD Builder. And again, simply running get help will show you what variables you have available for any particular command. So let's look into updating an operating system, and I'm going to drop into this guy here. We're going to set my home. I'll just close all of the clutter. And we're going to launch another PowerShell session, and let's just make sure that I've got everything I need. OSD Builder home is here. And so this is the main function that people are going to generally run. This is an update, and it's found exactly one operating system that needs an update. Now, one thing to be aware of is I actually have 2 operating systems in here, and then I have 4 more in my OS Media directory. But it's only going to ever show me an operating system that needs an update. So if you don't need to update the operating system, it won't be visible here. And if we look in the parameters for update OS Media, and we can see that we have an option of show hidden OS Media. And this is actually going to show me all the ones that it's decided to hide. And if we sort these by name, we can see I've got 2 1903s up here. One of them, the newer one, is okay. It doesn't need updates. I have 2 64-bit 1909s, and I have one that's up to date. And I've got 2 32-bit 1909s, and I can see one of them is not up to date. It's telling me to update it, and it's telling me needs update equals true. And so it's one thing to keep in mind, you're not going crazy if you run your update and you don't see something visible. It just means you're good. And if you run update OS Media without any parameters, it's going to tell you, and it's told me exactly what it's downloaded already, okay? And I always like to run it without parameters first, just to make sure I know what's going to happen. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, and this is Windows 1032. I'm going to go ahead and delete the servicing stack update, and then run this again. And this is where we see that it's aware of what updates we have that are not downloaded, okay? And if we want to go ahead and download that update, we simply add the download parameter. There is a separate function to go ahead and pick and choose downloads. There's also another method we can use, and we can see here, one of the shortcuts should do it. Right here, OSDBuilder, download, OS Media updates. And if we run this one command, you'll see it's going to go through all of the operating systems that I have present, and it's going to download exactly what's needed. And we can see it downloaded one servicing stack. It validated this was here. So that simple command, that one command that's a part of our shortcuts, will get you any missing updates that you need. And going back to those simple commands, we can see these are shortcuts. Here's your set home, so you can change the path, create paths. We also have an option of downloading feature updates with OSD Builder. And we can see here, we can choose 1809, 1903, we have 64-bit and 32. And these can be downloaded and imported into OSD Builder. I don't want us to get derailed. I think this is a pretty easy function that everyone's probably played with a time or two. And these feature updates are identical to the ISOs that you're going to get from MVLS. We do have 2 download shortcuts for OneDrive. One's for OneDrive Production and the other's for OneDrive Enterprise. And these ones in green import and update an OS. So you can import and update at the same time. Build NetFX, this is exactly something that Johan pinged me about a few months ago that we added. So concerning adding things, I'm all ears. You know, send me a tweet, say, hey, Dave, I'd really like to be able to do this or that, and I'll be more than happy to oblige. This is a community tool, and anything we can do to improve and help the community, I'm all for. So when we talk about updating, let's go back to Update OS Media. We've got a few different options here. One thing that Gary Block had suggested is a method to include or exclude different updates. And let's go back to the Update OS Media, and we see that it wants to download and update Adobe.net, and we can simply tell it exclude Adobe. And if we process this again, we're going to see Adobe's not even present. So we do have the option, I think it's SSU. Yep, I can tell it, don't process these 3 types of updates, and we'll see it won't do it. So we have a lot of control on what updates we can exclude. If we just want to exclude the SSU and nothing else, we can do that. So we do have some added flexibility, and you'll see if you want to include multiple, you simply just add a comma. We also have the option to select updates. So what this will do is it'll pipe it out into a grid view where I can say, you know, I just want LCU and SSU, and we'll process that, and that's all that'll appear. So we have quite a bit of control over this process. We have skip updates entirely, and you'll see no updates are here. And we see this warning at the bottom, use the execute parameter to complete this task. We always have to, it's never going to actually update anything until we do execute. And again, we have some new parameters that have shown up in the last few months, like skip component cleanup. This is something that you shouldn't do if you're using Citrix, PVS, Target, whatever it is. It's not something I do, but again, this was something that's been requested and it's added. And we're gonna move on from here. A lot of stuff to cover. So, mastering OS Media. One thing we can do if we don't like using the grid view, we can do this, and I will do out grid view. Get OS Media is going to get our collection of OS Media, and what we can see
Looks like we lost audio there. Can you hear me okay, Amy?
Yes, I can hear you.
yeah, audio restored.
Yeah, so you probably have to repeat the last 2-3 sentences there.
Okay. Simply saying we can use get OS Media to simply target a specific OS. For example, release ID 1909. There. And we can go even further. Where, oops, lost it. Well, we're not going to get into this too much, but we can do this. So if you're able to script this, you can see it's picked all my 1909 media and it wants to perform an update. But using get OS media allows us to do a lot of different things where we can pipe into update or to create a build. I'm not going to touch too much on this, but if you want to learn more, I'll be more than happy to do a write-up how you can use this for automation in order to, basically you can write a script to find what OS media needs to be updated and have it do it automatically from command line only without using any type of grid view. So moving on to creating a task. Now, one thing I want to clear up is the two terms that I use in OSD Builder is the first one's OS media, and that is what I call operating system media that's not customized. And an OS build is something that is customized. When I say customized, a build would be removing an APPX package and dropping back into PowerShell. And let's go ahead and look at our OS build, new OS build task. And we can see here that we have to give it a name. That's our only required parameter. And we can enable NetFX and we can remove APPX. Let's insert this command line. And what this will do, this is going to show us only the latest revisions of each OS. Okay. Now it's not really important that we select the latest. I'm trying to see if we can. Let's try this again with, I was hoping we could, I thought there was a parameter that could show me exactly, pick a specific one, but let's go ahead and build this out anyway. I'll build this out from my 64-bit 1909 719, and this is probably not the best example because I've already removed some stuff. We'll try it again. Let's use this guy here, the 32-bit. And we can see, because I gave it the parameter for remove APPX, it's going to show me all the APPX packages that are in the image. And this happens very quickly, not because it's mounting the WIM and reading it, it's reading it from those XML and JSON files that were exported as part of the inventory. And I can easily come in here and tell it, I don't want any of these Xbox or Zune apps, and simply press OK. And if I look here, it's listed all of those APPX packages I want to remove and put them in here in this variable. And what I can do is I can look now, and I should have a task that's been created, always prefixed with OS build and the name. And let's look at this task, and we can see these are the APPX provision packages that I've decided to remove. I can see enable NetFX is true, and we have lots of other options that we can run through. One thing we can do is we can keep using the same task name, and now I can come back in here and disable feature, and it will tell me that the task already exists. It's going to update the content. So let me go back to the 32-bit Windows image. And now I'm able to select optional features that I want to disable. And maybe I want to disable printing. If I come back in here and add remove APPX again, it's not going to reset the APPX and make me start over. It's already kept a history. Let me get this on top. It's already kept a history of what's in the JSON that I've told it to remove. So I can simply come in here and tell it, let's remove some more. And we can see here, these are the new removals that I've added for APPX. My disable features, it's not going to show these to me because they're not in here, and I can come in here and I can remove some more. Come back, let's look at the JSON, and we see these are the new Windows APPX packages I've removed and the NetFX packages. So it's updated that JSON and it's kept what I've had in place there. You'll see enable NetFX, I had set to true, it's still set to true. So this gives me the flexibility to continually tweak and update my image. So once we've created the task, we can take that task and process it through new OS build. If we haven't specified what tasks to run, it's going to pop up a grid view and ask us what to do. And as you see here, it's told us a few things. We've run it without the execute parameter, and so this is informational only. And it's telling me it's going to process this content pack. It's always going to process a global. We're going to enable NetFX. It's going to disable these features, and it's going to remove these APPX packages. Okay. Not sure if I actually wanted to disable these features, but what I can see here is it also looks for the latest source OS media. Now, one thing I can do is if I look in my task itself, this task is hard-coded with a name, the OS name to use, but it will always look for a newer version and use that. So you don't have to worry if you've selected an OS, and I'll show you how this works real quick. Let's go in here to OS import. We're just going to delete this secondary one real quick, and we're going to pick this guy and escape there. And now we're going to put this back, and let's take a look at my new OS build again. And we can see in here that the source that we gave it in the task, let's scroll up to the top, was .418, but it did find the 657 that we put back. So this is something to be aware of. Once you create your task, you don't need to ever edit the task unless you want to make changes. It's always going to follow the latest operating system, the OS media that we've updated. And this is very neat. You don't have to edit the JSON file. It's going to do this for you automatically. Now, if we do want to edit the JSON file, we absolutely can. JSON is not a hard language to learn. We're going to disable these optional features. We're not going to deal with NetFX, and we'll save that because I'm going to actually run a build, and for the sake of time, and we see here I can specify a task name. Don't use newest media. This is what would allow me to use that original 418 rather than finding the newest one. I can hide cleanup progress here, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to skip updates and skip component cleanup. And let's just run this again real quick. There's no execute parameter. So again, it's informational only, but this one's not going to process any updates because I've told it skip updates. And let's see if I have another skip. So skip updates PE is assumed, and we're going to add the execute parameter. And so what it's going to do, it's going to process that information, and now it's going to temporarily copy my OS into a working directory, and it will rename this directory. But this directory is sorted, the number that's given is the year, the month, the day, the hour, and the minute. And so if it doesn't dismount properly or what have you, this will help you identify which is the build, the temporary name that I was working with. So this is going to take a little bit to cook. One thing I do when I customize is I always like to exclude the updates. Because if I'm working on a build where I want to customize the start layout or remove something, the update process is going to add a good 15 minutes minimum to the processing time. But if I leave those updates out, then this is going to allow me to test the customizations only and not have to worry about the updates and the component cleanup. So right now it's already processed WinPE, and I know we didn't do any updates, but one thing that we've told it to do is it has to re-inventory all of the WIMs, so that if we customize it and we remove packages from a WIM, OSD Builder will always know what was the last thing that we did to that image. So the refresh of the inventory is important, and that's why we're still mounting WinPE even though we're not doing anything with it. Now, we see that it's gotten to the APPX packages, and these are the APPX packages that I told it to remove. And we can see it's processing it really fast. Up a little bit, we can see that there was an update for OneDrive. It looks for content, and it's just giving us a reminder if we want to download OneDrive, set up enterprise or production. It's giving us a shortcut for these commands. It's kind of a late reminder. At this point, it's kind of too late to put them in there. But as you can see, this build process is probably the fastest build process you've seen. We're already at the very end, and that, like I said, that was because we excluded the updates. And so this will allow me to take this image and test it and make sure that removing these APPX packages aren't going to cause me problems in my environment. So we'll let that dismount finish. And let's see where we're going to go from here. I believe we're going to start messing with some content packs. There we go. So content packs, it's a way to add content into your Windows image. What we did previously, what we just did was basically task-based, where we told it to remove things or add APPX packages or add packages using internal commands. But content packs allow us to do some further customizations. And by default, you will find these content packs in your OSD Builder home under a directory called content packs. And we do have a single global content pack that's created for us. We also have a PowerShell command, new OSD Builder content pack, and I can tell it I want this to just be a WinPE type of content pack. And when I look back at my content packs here, I've got one created. And what this has done, it's given me a very basic directory structure where I can tell it I want to add Dart or ADK files. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one of my existing content packs. And we'll see here that for ADK, I've got these sorted and provisioned like this. And so what this will do, if I add this into my content pack, it's going to automatically make this change. PE Dart is probably the easiest one I can add because it's not going to require a lot of data. Let's go ahead and add 1909 PE ADK, and you'll see these directories are created automatically. For 32-bit not many people should be using it, so these are left out. And so what we'll do is I've added just a few files, and I'm going to tell it to do a new OS build again, and we're going to tell it to do a taskless one, which means we're going to ignore everything that's been in our task. We're going to hide cleanup progress. We're going to skip updates, and we're going to select content packs. And you can add the content pack to your task. And I didn't skip component cleanup there. And we can see here that it's telling me to pick an OS, and I'm going to pick the 1909 32-bit. And we can see, since I've told it select content packs, I can select leave global, or I can select a new one. And what we can do is add the execute parameter to actually do that. Let me pop back in here. And we're going to leave that. And so now we're creating a new build, and we should see it add the ADK packages, and we should see it add Dart to my WinPE. And here it is. It's found the proper content that it needs, and it will install it in the proper order. Typically, these would install alphabetically, but OSD Builder has detected that I want to install PowerShell and NetFX, and so it's going to process and install these in the proper order. For ADK, for WinPE, you need NetFX first, then PowerShell, and then you can do all your DISM command, your PowerShell commandlets. For example, DISM commandlet, secure boot commandlets, because these require NetFX and PowerShell to be installed and enabled first. And this will take a fair amount of time. Luckily, we removed the updates, but I just want to get this to the part where it sees that where we get the other cabs installed. Now, one thing I want to point out is if we look up at this warning, it's already told us that the OS media we selected is not up to date. So it's aware by looking in the updates that we have a newer version, that it should be at a newer version, or there's a patch that's not installed. And it's telling us, hey, guy, you should run this command first. And it's already given us the command that we need to use, okay? We'll let this continue. And we can see it's installing all the ADK WinPE files that we need. So while this is fresh on our minds, let's take a look at get again. And one thing we can do, verbose, will tell us exactly what we're missing for each. Let me see if I can run this again a little smaller so we can zoom in. And if we look here on this one in particular, this tells me all of these are installed. And so when we run that get, we can see it's actually checking to see what updates we have from OSD sus, and it's reading this OS, it's reading the XML files and calculating that we do not have these two installed in our packages. And this is exactly how we can simply, with a simple command, come in and see what am I missing with this particular OS. But the neat thing is everything is checked and double checked. So you don't have to worry. OSD Builder is gonna keep an eye out for you. And this should probably be at the end of adding all this stuff to WinPE and WinRE, and we'll let that continue gracefully. So let's look a little further into the content pack, and we can see here I've taken RSAT files, and I can even put all of these RSAT packages straight into my image using a content pack. We can see that's put in OS capability. I can also add XPS viewer using a content pack. And if we look here at global, we can see we've got registry. So if I want to add something to the registry, which I don't see it in here, let's see if I can find one. This is my company one. And so these are the branding registry entries that I need for my company. And we can see I'm adding a bunch of enterprise certificates to my image using reg files. And we'll take a quick look. No one can read hex like this, but this is exactly what it is. And these registry entries will install certificates for me in an offline image. And so I don't have to do that during deployment, so they'll be provisioned automatically. I can have extra files, and we'll see here that if I want to add Dell CCTK or sysinternals, and this is for PE, we have PE extra files, we have drivers as well. So I can, this is what I use in WinPE. I add a driver to bypass my PowerShell execution policy in WinPE, and it's simply added by putting it into a content pack under PE drivers. But there's all kinds of things you can do with these content packs. You can add an auto unattend to your media drivers that are going to go in the system. We've got OS drivers and nothing really there. We don't typically put drivers in our WIMs. PowerShell scripts. So this is a method that allows me to add an OSD or update package management. And all of these things you can do, we're going to go to OSDBuilder.com, and if you look here, you'll be able to see the content packs and how they work for OS capability and for packages. That's very simple. We don't have much to do there. But this will basically give you an idea and tell you how to use the content packs, how to use multi-language content packs. This tells you where you get your source content and how to add it in a content pack. PE80K, this is the structure that we demoed exactly how it should be laid out. And again, by simply just adding it to these directories, we don't have to add it to the task. As long as it's in the global, it's going to be processed automatically because we put the release ID of the OS 1903 or 1909. It's going to pick the proper one. And so this allows us to really set up a structure and to have it be maintained going forward without making you have to reinvent the wheel or create a new task. You simply put everything in the content packs and they'll always be there. And going back to the JSON file, as we've seen that we can move our updates directory, we can absolutely move our content packs. And what I do on mine is I simply have them in this path here. So if I wanted to update my JSON, and we'll go back to program data, OS deploy. This is the one that I typically use, and we'll see here that I tell it my content packs are in this location. And so this is how I typically keep the one that's in program data to where I redirect everything. And if we were to actually implement this and get rid of this guy, and what I'm going to do is change my home directory to the one I traditionally use. And we'll open a new PowerShell session. And this should tell you exactly all of the OS media that I run, that I keep in my master repository. I don't know how easy this is to see, but I work and test with a lot of different images, and let's look at the path all the way over here somewhere. So yes, these are all of the images I work with, and if I keep everything in a shared repository, I'm able to use them from any OSD Builder repository that I want. So if I create a new one, and this is important, set home I can see that it's picked up the content from my templates. Everything else is pretty much clean. Let's tell it to create paths. And let's look at the paths that it created. And you see the only thing I keep in my repository are tasks, templates, OS builds, and PE builds. Everything else is shared. And I can see that when I go to update OS media, it's only showing me what I need to update. The content's already there. And that is simply because I've redirected my OS media to sit in this path, which let's take a look at how that looks. And there is all of the different OS media that I work with. So it's quite scalable. I like keeping previous versions. I don't know why. I can probably clear out quite a few of these, but this should also tell you that I do quite a bit of testing on the OSs myself to ensure that OSD Builder is working flawlessly, or as close to flawlessly as possible. So this is the build. It's finally done that we've added ADK files to, and what I can do is create a quick ISO. I'm probably not going to find this because I've redirected everything. That's true. So I need to pop back into this guy here. Wait just a second. And I don't think this is going to work since I redirected everything, but if I were to build out this ISO, it would have all my ADK and PE content. I probably have one that I can show you automatically. This should get us into Windows setup. And if I'm here in Windows setup, I can simply Shift F10. And yes, I do have Microsoft Dart in here. I also have PowerShell. And so yes, you can add PowerShell and Dart to Windows setup. This is one of the things you can do fully automated and have everything work. And let's see, I don't think I've got too much left. I think we're getting to the very end, and I believe we should be here at Q&A. I will apologize with how fast we went. I hope everyone caught something. Hey, Johan.
So we have a bunch of questions coming in already, actually. So I was hoping maybe you could take some time, see what you can
Yes.
answer on those.
Timed it just right. I am absolutely. Let's hit some questions.
And by the way, I'm a bit biased probably, but this stuff is just downright amazing. So impressed by the work you have done. It's so cool. My goodness, that's a lot of PowerShell.
Thank you, Johan.
It's a few lines, right? Just a few.
It's more than I care to work on almost. This will just take a second. All the separate functions are here, but all of the stuff that happens in the background is in here. We can see all of the subfunctions in here: add language pack, disable export, and we could see the main all functions 6,800 lines.
Nice. Wow.
The import, and so putting everything in there allows and we're looking straight into the code, and you guys are more than welcome to pull this from GitHub and look at this, and we see how the global variables work with the parameters. But the process should look pretty simple. In fact, if we go to new OS build, we can see it's only about 1,000 lines, but we'll see things like this: enable netfx, remove, and these are calling functions in the master. So everything should be very easy to read. For example, if hide cleanup progress is present, then we're going to hide cleanup progress. But it should be very easy for everyone to understand. Add content pack, OS capability, content pack packages. Here's our update component OS and servicing stack. And if we want to go in all functions, we could see how the update servicing stack works. Let's go in the outline. We'll briefly look at update servicing stack OS. And this is it. This is simply the code. This is how it's telling us it's installed. What we're looking for is we're looking in this sessions XML to find if the update's installed, or the get Windows package path mount directory. And so we're checking in real time to see, okay, is this SSU installed? If it's not, we're going to install it. If it is, we're just going to write it is installed and move on to the next.
All right, so what other questions came in there? You should be able to see them all. Amy has been assigning them to your, what's it called? Profile in the GoToMeeting thing.
Okay, let's see here. I stopped sharing the screen. I'll start back, but questions pane. Here we go. What is the command to export the JSON? And it's not internal to OSD Builder. It's a simple, and right now you see it's not populating it. There should be nothing there because I have not initialized yet. And once we initialize, the global variable will exist. And so what I can do with the global variable is I can grid view it if you want to see the values. This makes it real easy to see. But all we're doing here is we are going to convert to JSON and then out file. C:\\. Let me move this real quick. So hopefully this should answer the question and might error. Nope, didn't error. And let's look on the C drive. I don't recommend you actually export and keep everything in here. I prefer you export, something else, like a full, and only keep in the JSON exactly what you want to change, like this. Okay, so this is the command to export the JSON. I'm gonna see if I can copy this. Does it allow me to paste it here?
Good question.
There we go, done. Why would I use either a feature update or MVLS ISO? I tell you, the person who uses feature updates the most is a guy called Manel. He follows me on Twitter, he's a great guy, but he has to get the MVLS ISOs from the people who keep it under lock and key. And so he's able to use the feature update download in order to get him working on day one rather than waiting for them to give him the full MVLS. I have checked and they appear to be identical, but I will say always use the MVLS if you can. If you're just playing around, or if you've tested it and it works, which I have, then you can go ahead and download the feature update. So hope that answers the question. Let's see. Harish has left. Without re-importing the service WIM every time in SCCM, can we use OSD Builder to service WIM on the fly during imaging? Possibly as a task sequence step. No, I wouldn't recommend. You really can't during imaging. And I think the problem is how to leave out the re-importing the WIM. Yeah, I would definitely not recommend even going down that route. I don't know how you can do it. Now, Gary Block, he's been tweeting a lot lately about using OSD Builder. Let's see, great guy. I've presented with him at MMS Jazz, but one thing he is working on is a task sequence, and I'm going to see if I can find it real quick. In order, wow, he posts a lot. Here it is. He's doing some stuff here, but he's trying to put it in a task sequence to basically have it automate OSD Builder, and I think this is it. So he's got all his code here to download the modules and to build folder structure, and he's actually using OSD Builder in a task sequence. He's nuts. It's brilliant, but yes. So don't do that. Not during deployment. You should already have your WIM done before you even deploy it. Can we skip the OneDrive update? Yes, absolutely. In fact, I don't like to update or add OneDrive. In all of my examples, OneDrive wasn't there, and we can see here, I can easily download and update OneDrive, and we could see where it's going to go. but this is what it will do. But again, yes, I don't do OneDrive at all. I don't know why. I can't really give a good answer why. For one, we don't use OneDrive where I'm at. I wish we did, but we don't. And we can see it's downloaded OneDrive setup here. So no, you can skip it. If the file does not exist in your content OneDrive directory, then it will not update anything. So good to know, good question. I noticed that the 4 1909 versions are out of order numerically. Absolutely, absolutely, yes, that is true. Let's get there. Glad somebody noticed that. So I'm going to pop in another PowerShell. Why are they out of order? Let's see. And unfortunately, I've already moved all of my stuff. Let's see if I have a JSON file I can use. Now, this won't take but a second. We're going to export the JSON. And we can see here, all of my stuff is redirected to OSD. Whoops, convert to -JSON. So we have something called global and local variables. And what we do here, what I can do here is let me rename, let's just edit this. And I can tell it allow global options false. And this is very important if you wanted to create a repository that does not read from the global settings. So now I told it do not use global options, and now everything is contained here. So this is really good, Johan, for demonstration. If you have a repository that you want to not see your global options, you can lock it down to only process a local JSON file. So back to the question. I have 1909 that are out of order numerically. And if we look, these are sorted by name. If they're out of order numerically, it may be because the date times, it may be sorting the date time. Jonathan, can you clarify that question? I'm looking at my 4. If they're out of order numerically, one thing to pay attention is 2 are 64 and 2 are 32-bit. And so when we're looking at this numerically by UBR or version, we go from .693 to .719, .418, .657. So that would explain why they're out of order, because it's sorting them by name and then in order. The other thing is, and this is very, very tricky, and if we look at the version which is populated from DISM, we see all of these are 18362, but we'll see reg build, release ID, UBR, these are pulled from the registry, and you'll see these 1909s are 18363. So yes, we certainly do not want to just sort by version. It's proper to sort by name because the name contains the release ID and the proper UBR that's been pulled from the registry. And so keep that in mind. DISM and the OS are going to report different versions for 1909. So I hope that answered the question. That would explain why these are out of order. They're sorted by name.
Yeah. So David, we are coming up on our end time here.
Yes.
Amy, did you want to add something there? I take that as a no. She was shaking her head, sitting just next to me here. So basically, I'm so grateful, David, for taking time out of your schedule to do this presentation for us. As usual, amazing stuff. And thanks all of you for attending. Certainly follow David on Twitter, LinkedIn as well. Not Facebook since he doesn't use it. And yeah, big thank you, David. It's been a pleasure.
Johan, would you mind putting a tweet out to continue maybe the Q&A after the call and say add your questions for OSD Builder here and we'll add them. We'll answer them.
Sure, I can figure out how to send a tweet. I have done classes, so I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, and I'll answer some questions, but yeah, and or if you don't have questions, any comments, any suggestions, just let's get that information. And thank you, Johan and Amy, for having me. I'm gonna stick on the call until it kicks me off if there's anything else you guys need.
Awesome. All right, so that's it for us then. Thank you so much, everyone, and again, thank you, David, and stay safe out there, everyone. Take care. Have a good week. Thank you.